describe a historical period that you would like to know more about. Well, honestly, I'm not that much of a big fan of history, and it even used to be my least favorite subject when I was at school. But if I was to describe a historical period, it would probably be the ancient Rome, as in the Roman civilization. I have rather limited knowledge towards this period. All I know is that it encompasses the Roman Kingdom, Roman Republic, and then the Western Europe Empire until it collapsed in the 5th century AD. So yeah, that's all I know, because when I was a student, I really had this chance to get to know more about the Western history. We all learn more about our own country's history as well as our neighboring nations. So the reason why I would like to know more about this period is probably because 3 years ago, before this whole COVID pandemic, I went to some Western countries, including Italy. I also went to Rome. There, I went to visit the Roman Colosseum, which is quite captivating, and learned about the devastating historical events happened there. And then I naturally just want to know more about its past. And history is such a tricky subject, and learning it here and there in bits and pieces without actually developing a comprehensive understanding of the whole picture may eventually prove to be counterproductive. So, I mean, if I wanted to develop my own understanding and interpretation during that period, I would probably need to know more and deeper about that historical period. And since now there are so many books and articles available online, so yeah, the ancient Rome would be the historical period that I want to know more about.
Well, the historical period I want to know more about is the Second World War. I first learned it in the history textbook when I was in secondary school, but at that time I was not interested in it. All I knew was that it lasted for 6 years, from 1939 to 1945, and it involved almost all the major countries in the world. There were several famous events during that period, like Dunkirk evacuation, Pearl Harbor attack, and also Nazi concentration camp. But later, my grandfather told me about his own story during that period. He was still a kid at that time, and even though he was in the southern part of China, his city still got invaded by Japanese army. So he had to run away to the west with his parents. But at that time, there was no plane or train, so they had to walk first for quite a long time. And finally, they managed to get on one truck, which was actually heading to Yunnan province. However, they had no choice but to take that truck. So without any notice, they ended up with Yunnan province, which was a totally strange place to them. And my grandfather got lost on the way and almost got separated from his parents. Unfortunately, they arrived in Yunnan safely at the end, and my grandfather had to take several part-time jobs at a very early age when he was supposed to, go to school. So after I heard these stories, I just want to know more details about this period, because I think nowadays the younger generation are getting less familiar with this event. This period of time can never be forgotten or forgiven, right? Because the slaughter and the damage made to China and its people are horrifying. So I want to know more about this period in order to get better understanding of the older generation and also inform the younger generation.
Describe a historical period that you would like to learn more about. We would talk about when it was, what you have known, what you're interested in, and finally, why you would like to know more. So the historical period that I want to learn more about is back when SARS happened. I think it was in the early 2000s. That time period is actually very similar to what we are experiencing now with COVID, because these two viruses, they're very similar. They're both deadly, and it attacks your lungs and it spreads really fast. But luckily, SARS didn't really spread worldwide. It was contained within China, and it was gone within 2 2 years or so, but it the society took a big hit from the virus, just as what we are experiencing now. That's what I know so far. To be honest, I don't know much about it. I would love to learn more, particularly on how did people feel about the virus. Was it as devastating as it is now? Also, I really want to learn how did we manage to stop the virus from spreading, as well as eliminating it within 2 years of time. I guess what I'm most interested in is how did us as a society recover from the virus. I mean, we took a lot of damage, but somehow China still managed to thrive after the virus. I really wonder how long it took and what we did to make a full recovery, if we ever did, to be honest. I guess one of the reasons why I'm so interested in this period is because it's so similar to what we are experiencing now. So I really wonder if there's anything we could learn from history. Is there anything we could do? Is there anything that we could improve on to, make our current situation slightly better? And also another reason is that it gives me hope to learn about that period, because people did recover from it and the society recovered from it. I mean, it feels devastating now with the whole COVID thing, but learning about SARS makes me feel a little bit hopeful for the future, that as a society we would eventually get back on track. So yeah, I really want to learn more about the SARS period. Should everyone know about history? No, I don't think so. I personally know a lot of people who don't know much about history, if at all, and they're doing just fine. And also, historically speaking, if we're talking about like the Middle Ages or even times before that, your everyday Joe don't know anything about history, but humankind were still able to, evolve and survive, even when the majority of people don't know anything about history. So I'm sure we're okay without knowing anything about history. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that learning history is completely useless. I'm pretty sure that we could benefit a lot from it, but it's just not for everyone. I mean, if you want to learn about it, go for it. Good for you. But if you don't, I don't think it's a big deal, honestly.